In Louisiana, stealing an alligator gets you 10 years in prison, but shooting fireworks at a hospital is a $1 fine. Here are 43 bizarre active laws proving the state's legal code is completely unhinged. Number 1. In the city of Sulphur, it is illegal to use obscene language during a telephone call, a private device by definition, regulated like a public street corner. The ordinance is still fully enforceable today. What exactly was the call that went so wrong it needed its own law? Number 2. Louisiana boxing law bans spectators, managers, or seconds from making insulting or abusive remarks toward a contestant during a match. You can watch a man get punched in the face for 10 rounds, but heckling him about it is the part that gets you ejected from the venue. Number 3. Louisiana's entire legal system runs on a civil code descended from the Napoleonic Code, inherited through French and Spanish colonial rule, not English common law like the rest of the country. Repealing a written statute takes actual legislative effort here, real votes, real paperwork, which is exactly why so many of these laws never got cleaned up over the decades. The state isn't an accident, it's a museum that forgot to take down the exhibits. Number 4. Stealing crawfish is its own specific criminal offense in Louisiana, with penalties scaling by dollar value up to 10 years in prison for $1,500 or more. Get caught a second time, even for a smaller amount, and you face that same 10-year ceiling. Who decided the boiling pot deserved this much legal muscle behind it? Number 5. Stealing someone's alligator is also its own offense, carrying up to 10 years in prison and thousands of dollars in fines. Louisiana's 2 unofficial state mascots have better legal protection than most pieces of personal property in the entire state. Number 6. Louisiana bans diving or jumping off a public bridge specifically for the purpose of gaining publicity, motive and all, not safety, not traffic. The penalty caps out at $25 or 30 days. So if the stunt actually works, the fine is basically a tip. Number 7. The lawmaking gets noticeably lazier here. Discharging fireworks within 1,000 feet of a hospital is illegal, but the penalty caps at $1 or 1 day in jail, a fine smaller than most parking tickets. A real hazard, correctly identified by lawmakers, attached to a punishment so light it might as well be a polite suggestion rather than an actual law. Number 8. Louisiana bans wearing masks in public to conceal your identity, statewide, in the same state that built a global tourism industry around Mardi Gras, where concealing your identity is the entire point of the celebration. So the law carves out an exception for parades, religious coverings, and motorcycles. It banned its own signature holiday, then quietly footnoted the ban away. Number 9. In New Orleans, electric wires may not be attached to trees, a rule specific enough that someone clearly tried exactly that and it went badly enough to need its own line item in the municipal code. Number 10. Also in New Orleans, horses may not be tied to a tree on a public highway, a fossilized rule from a time when horse parking was a genuine, pressing civic concern for the city. Number 11. Chasing fish in a New Orleans city park is against the law, not fishing with a rod and reel, chasing them on foot, presumably by someone fully committed to the bit. What exact incident wrote this one into the books? Number 12. Fancy bicycle riding is prohibited in New Orleans, with fancy never actually defined anywhere in the ordinance, leaving an entire category of trick riding and showboating technically illegal under one vague leftover word. Number 13. Statewide, every bicycle rider must keep at least one hand on the handlebars at all times. Stack that with the fancy riding ban, and riding hands-free anywhere in Louisiana breaks state law, while doing it with style in New Orleans breaks 2 laws at once. Number 14. We're still in the mild stretch of this list. The next batch of entries starts tipping from quaint relic into genuinely baffling territory. Stay with me here. Number 15. Mardi Gras floats are legally required to display no smoking signs in a parade famous for open containers and beads flying through the crowd, where smoking was apparently the one bridge too far for lawmakers. Number 16. Snakes are banned within 200 yards of any Mardi Gras parade route, a rule that exists because the city's religious snake handling traditions and its parade culture occasionally needed a hard legal buffer between them. Number 17. Beads may not be thrown from a third-story window during a parade. Below that floor, apparently, gravity stops being a legal concern entirely. Would you actually trust that exact cutoff to keep a crowd safe below it? Number 18. Parade goers are legally assumed to have accepted the risk of being struck by thrown objects, including the genuinely heavy coconuts thrown by the Zulu Social Aid and Pleasure Club, an actual statute written specifically because someone tried to sue over it. Getting hit isn't bad luck under Louisiana law, it's a pre-waived possibility you agreed to the moment you showed up to the sidewalk. Number 19. Insulting or disparaging players during a sporting event is illegal in Louisiana, in a region famous for hosting some of the loudest, most passionate sports fans in the entire country. Number 20. 20 entries deep, and we're only just scratching the surface here. The next stretch moves away from parades into personal conduct law, where the underlying logic gets noticeably thinner. Number 21. Biting someone with false teeth counts as aggravated battery rather than simple battery because the law assumes wearing dentures implies premeditation. Bite with natural teeth and it's one charge. Bite with hardware you brought along yourself and it's a worse one. Number 22. A toy gun used during a robbery gets sentenced the same as a real one under Louisiana law, closing a loophole some very confident criminal presumably tried to argue their way through. Number 23. Ordering a pizza for someone without their knowledge can cost you a $500 fine, technically criminalizing a well-meaning surprise gift right alongside genuine restaurant harassment pranks. Number 24. Making a false promise of marriage specifically to seduce someone exposes you to civil liability in Louisiana, an entire legal category built around being charming with deliberately bad intentions. Number 25. We're closing in on the halfway point now, and the planning gets lazier still from here. Jefferson Parish requires garbage fed to hogs to be cooked on the premises first, a hyper-specific solution to what must have been a hyper-specific problem. Number 26. Also in Jefferson Parish, minors can't enter businesses with coin-operated foosball machines without an accompanying adult, treating a tabletop sport like a genuine hazard zone requiring supervision. Number 27. The town of Carencro has banned cowbells outright within its limits, in a state otherwise famous for loving loud, percussive celebration at every opportunity. Number 28. At Louisiana funeral wakes, attendees are customarily capped at 3 sandwiches each. Grief got expensive for hosting families, and the fix wasn't asking guests for restraint, it was writing a hard number into the rules of mourning. Number 29. Things stop being charming right around here. Ingesting blood or bodily fluids during a ritual of any kind can carry up to 25 years in prison, or a $25,000 fine, a penalty range that rivals some of the most serious felonies anywhere in the state's entire criminal code, attached to a category of act most people will never come close to encountering. Number 30. New Orleans bans practicing voodoo within city limits, in the one city most globally associated with voodoo culture, complete with its own dedicated museum selling supplies for the very practice the ordinance technically forbids. Number 31. We're deep enough now that mildly bizarre laws start feeling almost normal by comparison. Disturbing the peace in Louisiana includes directing offensive, derisive, or annoying words at someone in public. The bar for criminal annoyance here sits just above an ordinary rude comment on a sidewalk. Number 32. Snoring is technically prohibited unless all bedroom windows are closed and securely locked, legislating a bodily function nobody can consciously control in the first place. Number 33. Anyone overseeing a professional public opinion poll in Louisiana must register annually with the Secretary of State, filed under the state's criminal law title rather than its business code. Pollsters get regulated like a genuine public safety concern. Number 34. It's illegal to leave an abandoned icebox or other airtight container accessible to children unless the latch is removed first. The word icebox, still frozen in legal amber decades after anyone actually called it that. Number 35. And somehow we're still just scratching the surface here. Louisiana's Tough Man Competition statute criminalizes promoting, judging, refereeing, or participating in unsanctioned combat events, then spends most of its actual text defining exactly what doesn't count, carving a precise legal fence around amateur fight clubs that almost, but don't quite, qualify as real sanctioned sports. Number 36. Contaminating a public water supply, including something as simple as urinating in certain protected lakes, can carry up to 20 years in prison, a maximum security penalty attached to an act nobody could realistically ever prove happened. Number 37. Alcohol law in Louisiana runs parish by parish, with genuinely wild local variation depending entirely on which side of an invisible line you happen to be standing on. Just 25 signatures can force a wet or dry referendum in any given parish. A parish can repeal its own dry status by simple ordinance vote with no election needed, and tightening it back up usually requires an actual vote at the ballot box. Drive 20 minutes in any direction, and you cross invisible legal borders that can shift again at any moment, based entirely on whoever filed the last petition. Number 38. The state's own legal foundation actively works against it here, because the civil code requires real legislative repeal rather than letting old laws quietly lapse on their own. That parish-by-parish patchwork from the last entry isn't an accident. It's the predictable output of a system built to accumulate rules, rather than ever shed them. Every weird entry on this list so far exists specifically because erasing old law in Louisiana is harder than writing new law. Number 39. This is where it gets genuinely reality-breaking. The icebox law, the snoring ordinance, the pizza prank fine, none of them formally repealed even as decades of common sense and modern technology moved well past them. Louisiana doesn't really have old laws the way other states do, laws quietly understood by everyone to be dead weight. It has active laws that simply happen to be old, sitting right next to crawfish theft penalties and water felonies with zero functional distinction between any of them in the actual code. Number 40. And none of this exists in isolation. A single weekend here could theoretically violate the handlebar law, the snoring ordinance, the disturbing the peace statute, and the parish liquor laws without ever leaving a 50-mile radius of where you started the day. Most states scatter their weird laws like loose trivia. Louisiana layers them like sediment, one rule stacked directly on top of the next. Number 41. Municipal and parish ordinances exist completely separately from the statewide penal code here, with their own definitions, their own penalty caps, and their own enforcement courts handling violations independently. There is no master list, no single rulebook anyone can actually point to. There are 64 parishes, each quietly running its own diverging legal universe under the exact same state flag. Number 42. The penalty structure makes almost no sense placed side by side. A $1 fine for fireworks near a hospital. 20 years in prison for contaminated water nobody can prove you ever touched. 10 years for stealing an alligator. $500 for a prank pizza delivery to a friend's front door. There is no scale here, no consistent logic connecting the severity of an act to the punishment attached to it. Just decades of legislatures that never once checked what the others had already written. Number 43. So here we are, at the absolute peak of it. An entire legal system descended from French and Spanish colonial code, layered with municipal ordinances that contradict and ignore each other freely, protected by a structural bias toward keeping old laws instead of ever cutting them, where a snoring ordinance and a 20-year water felony somehow carry the exact same technical legal weight. No cleanup, no review, just decades of quiet accumulation, waiting for some unlucky person to break 4 of these before lunch. Who actually signs off on a system like this and decides it's finished? So there it is. 43 real entries into the strange architecture holding Louisiana's legal code together. The line between charming regional quirk and genuine legislative disaster here is thinner than the food and music would ever let you guess. Louisiana isn't broken so much as it never finished being built, and somehow that's part of what makes it unforgettable. Which one of these 43 got you the most, and what state do you think could actually give Louisiana a real run for its money in the bizarre law department? Drop your answer below, and if you want more deep dives into the chaos hiding behind America's most charming facades, you know what to do.